Your journey has been just amazing, and he came to Interfaith 14 years ago, and from another ministry that he thought he was going to be involved in, and it was not a vibrational match. So someone from Canada called him and said, "You need to go over to Interfaith Spiritual Center Worldwide. I think that's more of a vibrational match for you." And so he did that. And I just said, "Well, sing something." So a cappella, he went into, one of his wonderful songs. And I said, "You're hired," right? And that was 14 years ago. So it's been a wonderful partnership, and just seeing the evolution of this beautiful soul and moving into, of course, his destiny. So this morning, the topic is sacred agreements. The theme for the month has been sacred contracts. And of course, Carolyn Mace wrote a beautiful book on sacred contracts. But sacred contracts have been around really for 2,000 years, that each and every one of us has a destiny to fulfill. We hear that call, we answer that call, we step up to life, and our life unfolds. And when we talk about be still and know that I am God, the psalmist from 46:10, be still and know that I am God, that each and every one of us is a co-creator with God. And that if we are created in the image and likeness of something so powerful, so magnificent, so wonderful, then energetically we arise in the energy of our true spiritual stature. So these sacred contracts and agreements, like I used to think I would never have chosen the parents and the family, that I had to be raised in domestic violence. But the truth is, every single one of us choose our path to learn, to grow, to evolve, and to expand our consciousness so that we can be like the ancient bodhisattva who entered the marketplace with healing, helping hands. So as we embody the energy of spirituality, the ground of being, taking responsibility for all that we have experienced, and of course to heal the issues of the wounded child so that we don't carry that within every relationship that we encounter, that we embrace. And it is interesting that when we have unfinished business, that we attract the people into our lives that bring it up. And we think, it's about them. But the truth is, it's about us and what we need to learn, what we need to move through on the other side. What archetype are we manifesting at that moment? And the ruler archetype is about self-rule. It's about going within. It's about opening to the magician archetype that can transform the routines of work into celebrations of life and love. That's what the magician archetype does. And so this morning, as we look at our sacred agreements that and I want to acknowledge our viewing audience, that when I look out, I'm not just looking into a camera. There's a little green light, right? Green for go. And the eye in which I see God is the same eye in which God sees me. And that through this energy of God, whatever you choose to call your God, whatever name you put on your higher power, it matters not. But to acknowledge that which is within us is greater than that which resides in the world of the appearances that show up, that we so often give our power away to, don't we? But these sacred agreements, when I was 11 years old, I've shared that I turned the sandbox over. It was my first pulpit, and had a nice energy about it, and that I could put pictures on the side that was facing the ground. That became my first pulpit at 11 years old. So we all come in with a destiny to fulfill. And what is so interesting is that when my mother discovered that she was with child with me, that she went and visited. She lived in Oklahoma, and my father was in World War II. And she went to visit some of his relatives. And in those days, anyone with mental health issues was an embarrassment and had to be hidden away. And she said in a little hovel in the backyard was this family member, this relative of my father's, who had mental health issues. And she said that they had him hidden away, and that she caught a glimpse of him, and that, he absolutely had mental health issues. And she said at that moment, fear struck. And she just looked up. Now, this is an 18-year-old girl. She looked up and she said, "Dear God, please, please make my baby healthy and perfect, and I'll dedicate him to you." And little did she know, she had a daughter, but she named me after the Rose of Sharon from the Song of Solomon. I am the Rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. As the lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. As the lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. So she decreed it. It's like we had a sacred agreement for me to come in to this planet and to minister. And through the domestic violence and my sister taking her own life and everything that was experienced in that environment, which was very tragic at times, that I made choices. And I found, in fact, my mother, when I was 19, gave me a book, The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And when I was president of United Clergy of Religious Science, and I was the first female president of the School of Ministry at the Ernest Holmes College, I was seated next to Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, and I had the opportunity to share with him that I was going through a very dark period in my life at 19 years old. My mother gave me his book because it had helped her so much, and it made the shift. And here he was at a United Church of Religious Science banquet honoring him. And what was so powerful about this is that I really got to bare my soul and give gratitude to someone who changed my life. And then finding Science of Mind, walking in and having the minister say, Dr. Guy Lorraine said, "You have a right to be here. You're no less than the sun, the trees, and the stars. You are worthy." And all those insecurities of being raised in domestic violence began to melt as I took all of the Science of Mind courses until there was nothing more to take except the School of Ministry, which I just kind of entered in as an avocation, and then realized that this truly is where I am to be. This is fulfilling my destiny. And I had a date with destiny. I became more and more aware of it. There is an amazing, when we look at these sacred agreements, there is a family that lived in the Midwest, the Kushners, and they were actually Russian immigrants. And they came from Russia so they could experience religious freedom. And at their very first Christmas there, and it was a really beautiful neighborhood, 2-story houses and beautiful lawns, and there was an atmosphere. And as everyone put out their Christmas lights and their Santas and their bells and angels, they put in their window a menorah. And it was the third night of Hanukkah, and it was an electric menorah, very beautiful. And she had it in the window, and she twisted the light. It was the third night of Hanukkah. And at 4:30 in the morning, some teenagers that had really gotten into a crowd in a very lower vibratory frequency that were white supremacists. And at 4:30 in the morning, the three guys got out. They took a baseball bat and they broke the window, and the menorah went flying on the ground. Well, this was devastating. This is what happened in Russia, because when the communist regime went in and said, what did it was, I believe Marx that said, religion is the opiate of the people. And so it was frowned upon. They could not practice their Judaism openly in Russia. So they immigrated to the United States, to the Midwest, so that they could experience and embrace religious freedom. And here at 4:30 in the morning, window broken, menorah, on the floor with all of the glass. Well, one of the neighbors heard about it and she was like outraged. What can I do? She came to their door and she said, if there's anything I can do, please let me know. And of course, Mrs. Kushner was in tears and was just devastated by this. So this neighbor took it upon herself. We look at sacred agreements here. Took it upon herself. She went to the department store and she said, how many electric menorahs do you have in stock? They said, I think we have about 8. She said, I'll take them all. And she bought 8 menorahs, these electric menorahs. And then she received a call from another neighbor saying, I had this idea of going to the department stores and various shops and buying the electric menorahs for everybody in the neighborhood to put in their windows as a sign of solidarity, and that we do not accept this in our neighborhood. And she said, wow, I wasn't alone. So together, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am in the midst of them. Together, they bought 18 electric menorahs. And she said, we're knocking on doors in the neighborhood, sharing what happened. And a lot of people hadn't heard about it, but they thought it was absolutely outrageous that this could happen in their neighborhood, and said, yes, we will put it in our window. So 18 neighbors put the electric menorahs in their windows so that when Mrs. Kushner came home from work that evening and she turned onto her street, and every single house, there was lit in the window a menorah, and tears just flowed from her eyes. She was so deeply moved. This would never have happened in Russia. So deeply moved. And so she called the one neighbor that extended herself and said, we have a gift for our neighbors. Would you please come for a visit? And she and her friend that called her went over, and she had little Christmas bags. And in the bag were little Christmas ornaments of a church. And written on the church, on the front door of the church, of this Christmas ornament, was peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. With God as my Father, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Peace on earth. The peace that passes all understanding. And the neighbors were so moved. And the one said, they've continued this ritual every single year. And she said, when I place the little church on my Christmas tree and I see the peace on earth, I realize our oneness. I realize that we can all live together in peace and harmony. That this sacred agreement that these Russians came to this country to experience religious freedom. And this was an interview that I experienced, and they interviewed the Rabbi Strong. And he said, this was so reminiscent of World War II, that when the Danish country became occupied with the German Nazis, that the King of Denmark said, we are all Danes. Everyone will wear this gold star that says Jew, because we are all Danes. And he ordered the country that every single person wore that gold star that said Jew, to be in solidarity with their Danish Jewish country men and women. This is so deeply moving when he shared this, because the truth is that we are all one, regardless of color, race, creed, sexual orientation, and political affiliation. That the ground of being is spirituality that transcends religion. And that as we practice, as we, many, many pathways up the mountaintop, but the view is always the same from the summit. That we are all one. So when you look at your life, take responsibility that these are sacred agreements. And if there's pain and suffering, as Dostoevsky said, that I may be worthy of my sufferings, redeemed in my suffering, so that I can be like the ancient bodhisattva and go out into the marketplace with healing, helping hands to help my brothers and sisters. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sister's keeper? I am my brother. I am my sister. We are one. What happens to the one happens to the all. And what happens to the all happens to the one. The breath of God, the breath within us, the breath of God is the breath that flows through us. So we breathe this energy of light, and the opportunity that we have at such a deep level to take a stand in our own lives, not be at the effect of it, but realize we have a sacred agreement. And through this sacred agreement, we grow, we unfold, we become all that we can be. So today, as we look at our lives and the opportunity that we have, as Reverend Prince Fleet said, that he heard the voice that said, go to Palm Springs, and that he listened. And he got in his car and drove 400 miles a day for 6 days, and he made it. But the first place that he went to, he wasn't received. And the disciples said to Jesus, what if we knock on these doors? You want us to go and preach the gospel to all the nations, and what if we knock on these doors and we're not received? Jesus said, then wipe the dust from off thy shoes and go thy way in peace. And so he wiped the dust from off his shoes. He came over to Interfaith, and everything was unfolding for him in these 14 years. And we have loved and supported him and been at almost every wonderful event that he has graced his own life and us, and the opportunity that we have to support each other. So on this amazing day, let's just open to spirit. Let's acknowledge there is a spirit within all humanity, and the breath of the Almighty hath given us life and understanding. And through this sacred understanding, we acknowledge our oneness. We acknowledge the opportunity that we have to be in the world, yet of a higher spiritual vibratory frequency. And that we're lighting the menorahs from within, aren't we? We're lighting the energy from within. And we let our light so shine before humanity that they see our good works and they glorify our Father, Mother God in the heaven of our own consciousness. And that does make all the difference. I say to you, we're all going someplace. We're all on a path and on a journey. Where are we going? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. Because we are in a high place and we will not come down. None of these outer things move us. We are in a high place and we will not come down. I say namaste. The divinity within me salutes the divinity within you, and the divinity within you salutes the divinity within me. And if I'm in that place in me and you are in that place in you, there truly is only one of us. Namaste. And I say to you, shalom, the peace that passes all understanding, and God bless us, everyone. Thank you so much for being with me this morning.